Hey everybody, this is Rustin Rose with Metalholic Magazine and Access Entertainment. With us, the legendary Bobby Blitz Ellsworth of Overkill. How you doing, brother?
Hey, listen, what's happening, man? Getting ready for the release of Devil Armory coming up, July 22nd of 2014, and quite an exciting time. Another go round, another 10 rounds in the ring with Overkill. So we're happy and doing what we should be doing.
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, out today over in Europe, I believe, those lucky bastards get it a little bit earlier than we do. But I got to tell you, first off, I've had Bitter Pill and Ironbound both stuck in my head on a loop all week, so fuck you very much for that.
Hey, my pleasure. Yeah, my niece once asked me what I did for a living. I said, I fuck people's lives up.
Nice. So now, I want to talk about the new record. Obviously, that's what we're here for. But first, I'd like to step back in time a bit. I was listening to the Ramones last night in light of Tommy Ramone's recent passing. Coming up in the New Jersey, New York area, what sort of impact did the Ramones have on you guys and you personally?
There was this kid, went to a Catholic high school in New Jersey, right? And what he used to do was once he got into the Ramones, he would put his leather jacket on, he would get some ripped jeans and high top Converse. And back then, you could, even at high school age, you could buy yourself some beer in the city. And as long as you had a long bag, you could sit out in the street and drink it. And this guy with his buddies used to go do a thing called Ramones spotting, right? So we go down to a place called St. Mark's. We'd lean against the wall looking like the Ramones, looking for the Ramones. So obviously, all the way back then, they were, let's say, one of those groundbreaking bands for me personally, because I was one of those Ramones spotters that used to go down to St. Mark's.
Nice. So, and of course, this year marks the 30th anniversary of that pivotal Overkill EP, which led to your Megaforce deal. Is it somewhat surreal to think it's 30 years and 17 albums later?
For me, it absolutely is. There hasn't been a wear out for me yet. It's not like, I think people think in long terms of time when you're worn out, like, oh my God, this has been forever. When you're waiting on a line somewhere, you're like, will this line ever move? But if you're happy, if you're going in, then the line seems like it's moving. So, in my case, it doesn't feel like that EP was 30 years ago. It feels like I'm not going to say in the recent past, but it just feels like it's in the past. And we're just kind of doing what we do and moving along. And I think kind of the proof of that is, when you press play on White Devil, you're going to be able to hear, you hear resiliency, but you also hear youthful energy. You hear relevance in 2014, not something rooted or presented as if it's 1985. So I think that's probably the key for me to not feeling like it's been 3 decades, but more so as if it's just been, a nice solid career.
Right. And I was going to ask you, how do you remain relevant and yet evolve within the context of the band's signature?
Well, I think you have to admit to yourself that you don't know everything. That's first and foremost. So, if you're open to ideas and you take those ideas and make them your own, that you can apply it as if learning. And when learning, relevance runs parallel to learning. Because you're learning something new. It doesn't matter if you're learning something old, as long as it's the present time, you're actually increasing yourself. And I think that's what keeps it interesting for us. That if we're kind of pushing our boundaries, even though we know at the end of the day it's going to be an Overkill record, but we're embracing new technology, or we're embracing new ways of singing for me, or Ron Lipnicki's always taking drum clinics, this guy. He gives them and he takes them. And I think to myself, this guy wants to be the best drummer who walks, the face of the planet. That's his goal. So if that's his goal, he's relevant. And with that relevance comes, let's say, contemporary presentation. Know him for what he is, not for what he was.
Right. Let's talk about White Devil Armory. Obviously, that's why we're here. You guys seem to be stretching yourselves here, as you were sort of just saying, trying out some new ideas and dynamics within the context of the Overkill signature. So just tell us overall about the new record from your perspective.
Well, I think it's a good point. It's what I picked up on this, immediately. We started using the thread or the word armory when writing, and I could hear, if that's what Dee Dee's thinking when he's writing these riffs, that's going to be my thread also. And what I saw as this thread of armory started kind of, morphing from riff into songs, into demos, that I was hearing this eclectic value of Overkill that is not two-dimensional but multi-dimensional, three-dimensional, four-dimensional. That I'm hearing punky riffs, from those Ramones spotting kind of mentality days. I'm hearing groove and halftime stuff like Bitter Pill. I'm hearing, the breakneck, blistering thrash of Armorist, or the traditional heavy metal of a song called In the Name. So, I'm kind of listening to the record, and I'm thinking to myself, this is like Overkill at the end of the day, but it's Overkill made up of so many different elements. So I think that's what we ended up getting with this, was that kind of eclectic, spread out, diverse value with regard to White Devil Armory, that it contains more than two elements, but let's say many.
Right, absolutely. Just in the title alone, is there sort of a message there? Because when I first heard the name of the album, I was thinking of our White House, of our government, because I'm White Devil Armory,
Again, it's back to the thread. We've been doing this now for many years, that we need a thread. You just need some type of a verbalization of what you're working on, because it confirms what you're doing. And we did it with the Electric Age, and obviously that thread was the word electric. And then if you bounce off of that thread, if you never have a place to go, you can always go back to the thread. So it kind of gives you a buffer from falling out the back end, saying, there's nothing I can do. But Dee was enamored with this word, and he sent it to me, and they started sending me pictures, and they were ominous. They were big, concrete structures with, crests on them, and turrets and towers for protection. So it had this really ominous strength feel to it. And I said to myself, if that's the thread he's using, I'm going to take it further. So I started messing with the title, and I did it until I got the imagery that I kind of wanted. It was scratched out on a telephone bill. I still have it here, and I'm probably going to save it. There's the word Armory, and then in front of it, written in Sharpie, is the words White Devil. And I said, it's like being in a fucking Quentin Tarantino movie. It's like all these images that are going through my head. So the purpose or the meaning behind it is just quite simply unto us, and using it as that thread or starting point to how we're going to write a record.
And it's absolutely an imposing picture. When you think of the concept of Armory and everything, and that sort of permeates throughout the album in terms of that big, beefy solidness there. Solidness isn't even a word, but I'll make this shit up. Who cares? But
something, and that's a good point, because that becomes my thread now. So if I'm going to take it from his and move it into mine, what I did was I just created a character. And some of the sound these lyrics they just don't hit me. Well, they're just emotionally based lyrics. It's just about the simplicity of isolationism at the beginning, and then taking that isolationism after shedding your bad qualities, or my bad qualities, and finding out that there's more strength in a unified approach to things. So it's not a concept, but if I use that thread, it always gives me that place to go back to write those short stories about how I can go from isolationism to part of a unit.
Right. Now, one of the things, I have to tell you, we just recently did a thing at Metalholic where we were doing the best American thrash bands of all times, and Overkill has unanimously come out at the top of this from our readers and from the staff and everything, and that comes back to the consistency of the band. 17 albums, 3 decades, never more than 3 years between them, not a bad effort in the bunch. To what do you attribute Overkill's consistency?
Well, I've been trying to avoid manual labor for 3 decades right now. I'm obviously doing a pretty good job. I don't know. We obviously loved it. I think we're opportunists. I think we're the kind of people that, we realize that just because we're in a band, it doesn't necessarily make us any smarter. I think that is a downfall. Somebody's, 1 minute he's a guitar player, the next minute he's the smartest guy on the face of the earth because people like his record. It's not necessarily the truth. He could still be an asshole. You know what I'm saying? So I think we're realists when it comes to this, and that we look at it as like, man, we're lucky guys to have this opportunity, and we could get more opportunities if we work harder and not make it luck anymore, but make it directly responsible to the work we put in it. that's what will be the value. And I think that's kind of a special way to go through life, because it's not about nobody understands me. It's about, God damn it, I'll make them understand me. If you give me an extra hour, I'll make them understand me. So I think that's probably Overkill's philosophy with regard to our longevity.
Well, it's funny you were just mentioning that. You get that New York, New Jersey feel in there, that intimidation factor thing going on. I always sort of wondered, because you and Anthrax were sort of the epitome of the East Coast thrash scene. What is it that you got from that East Coast mentality, the East Coast music scene, because it was totally different from the other side of the country, that, say, the Bay Area thrash contingent didn't have?
Well, when it comes to music, it's that Ramones thing, I think. I mean, that was ours. We came from this area. There was a great punk scene going on here. And I went to the university in the city just so I could be around CBGB's and Max's Kansas City and see the New York Dolls or the Ramones or television, whatever was going on. And then that kind of morphed into a hardcore scene. So I think that was, the contribution. You kind of pair that up with the new wave of British heavy metal and the New York punk vibe. The Dead Boys coming to New York from Cleveland. I mean, this was like a big event for us, And you put that with, Saxon, and you get kind of Overkill. But I think that becomes a separation between East Coast and the West Coast. But there's also a work ethic here and a tenacity that is it's instilled in you. When you grow up in this area, you know people from everywhere in the world. Your neighbors are Ethiopian and Jordanian and Dutch and Russian, and that's just kind of the way it is. So you don't waste your time with any of that bullshit. A guy's a good guy or a guy is not a good guy. It doesn't matter what the fuck he is, ethnically or religiously. It matters that he's a good fucking guy. And I think that that's one of the things that gives, I suppose the world, but growing up here, gave us kind of that, kind of like, oh, we don't have to waste our time with that shit. We can just kind of move on. We'll hang out with the good guys as opposed to the fucking Latin guys. So it was a simplicity, I think. And when it comes to getting it done, this was the shit our parents taught us when we were kids. I mean, this is where America opened its shores to European immigration, for instance. So when they came over here, man, they had to fucking work, And my grandfather was a coal shoveler, and he never regretted it. He was glad to have this opportunity. So I think that gets passed down here, and that's probably one of the marketable differences with regard to what happened out on the East Coast when I was a kid.
Awesome. Bobby, last question, the pointless question of the week. I see you're vaping these days. What's your go-to flavor?
I like a thing called Torque 56. It's sold by Halo, and it tastes like a Marlboro.
Go figure. A cigarette tastes like a cigarette. Bobby, thanks so much for taking the time to chat with us. It's an honor as always. We hope to see you out on the road sometime this summer.
Hey, my pleasure. Thank you for the time.
Take care, brother.